The Africa Cup of Nations 2023 is certainly the gift that just keeps on giving. A really unpredictable competition, and may I say, no one knows what's going to happen next. The only thing that we're certain of is the matches that will come out, but as to what the result will look like, no one really knows what will happen. I've decided to be really unpredictable with the show today because I've got someone in the hot seat to have a conversation with me. He's no stranger to the Fut-Afrique family, but may I say, he may be a stranger to you if you are new to the show. Jeff Katala, it's been absolutely a long time, but you come at the right time.
What a pleasure. You know, the circumstances made it possible for me actually to be part of the show, and I'm coming back home and renewing my acquaintances with the show, and this is marvelous. And during these competitions, what a chance.
I mean, you come at the right time, right? But I'm sorry that DRC is out, but you come at the right time because that was a tantalizing match. But before we get to that match, I want us to talk about how this AFCON has been put together. Obviously, one thing that has really stood out for me is the fact that CAF has been really inclusive with how they're actually writing the stories about the AFCON. I mean, you're having the languages such as Lingala, we have Swahili, we have Pidgin, English, and many other languages being told, well, the stories of the AFCON being told within those languages.
Yes, it is a very good achievement. When I saw the CAF establishment coming together during these competitions in Abidjan in Côte d'Ivoire, I was very impressed to see that some of the languages have been put in to try to reach the utmost corners of the African continent, because apart from the language that we call official languages, your French, your English, and the other languages, we do have our local languages in Africa. And it is a very good initiative by the CAF establishment just to have those languages, the games commentated in those languages, actually to reach the large part of the African continent and fans as well.
Now, Papa Jeff, I always see you as someone who will always say there's a good and there's a bad side of everything, right?
Yeah.
But normally when there's a bad, there's some improvement that could be made. In this competition, we find that the stadiums are full for the Côte d'Ivoire games, but when it comes to the other games, we're expecting people to fill out the stadiums. That's not the case.
Yeah, but it's a deja vu. You know, in Africa, most of the time during CAF competitions, even the Champions League and the club competitions in Africa, when the local clubs, the clubs coming from those particular countries are playing, the stadiums are full. Yeah. But if they don't play, the stadiums are empty. But what is very odd in this competition is that people are willing to go to the stadium.
Yes.
But the ticket, the outlet points are missing. And when they go there, sometimes there's no ticket. And there are many people that have left France, Europe, and coming from other parts of Africa to go and watch the games. But besides the game from Côte d'Ivoire, other games, stadiums are striving actually to be filled.
Well, I guess that's just a point that CAF, when they go back and they look back at this AFCON, they will say that this is one thing that we have to correct, which is the ticketing process of getting into the stadiums. Now, we saw the second semi-final take place this week. It was Côte d'Ivoire up against DRC, the two weakest links when it comes to the group stages. But here they are progressing all the way to the final, that being the host nation, DRC, coming short. And may I say, Papa Jeff, what a match that was. Was that a representation of the two weakest links? Was it evident on the day?
I wouldn't say that those teams are the weakest link, but as I've seen from the beginning of this particular competition, this particular AFCON is an AFCON of humility. Yeah. You feel very arrogant, because I know that most of the people who were predicting Morocco and Senegal to be playing in the final, just like in 2002 during the World Cup in South Korea, in Japan, people were predicting, Batistuta and Argentina to play in the final against France and Zidane, which it didn't happen. Because they say that, when you come into these kind of competitions, you have to be humble. Yes. And this is the AFCON of humility. But I wouldn't say that they are the weakest link. But for DRC, they did qualify. And Côte d'Ivoire was just playing in a group of qualifying teams, but as friendly games.
Yeah. We talk about Côte d'Ivoire, and obviously Côte d'Ivoire, interesting enough, right? Frank Kessié was man of the match within this particular game. He came out and he said afterwards, he was like, when they lost 4-0 to Equatorial Guinea, they promised themselves that they had to put themselves together and be a different Cote d'Ivoire team. Do we see that, and have we seen that throughout the entire competition since that loss that they suffered within the group stages?
Well, you say that just because they won. But they have to say thank you to Morocco because Morocco beat Zambia for them to qualify. So you can never say that in football. It can happen again. You know, football can humble you. As I heard the South Africa, one of the coaches in South Africa saying that football can kill you dead.
Yeah.
And this is actually the fact. And but I'm happy for Frank Kessié and to become humble to say that they will never give that kind of the show to the Ivorian, to the African continent again, because they are one of the powerhouses in terms of football in Africa, and they have to pick up the game, and they did just that.
You said that they have to thank Morocco, right? Yes. The fans have done it on their behalf, Papa Jeff. The beauty of what football does, bringing people together. We've seen the Moroccan flag in the stands for Cote d'Ivoire ever since they got out of the group stages.
It is one of these things that we call the togetherness spirit, actually, within this particular AFCON. You know, teams are saying that Zambia will never say thank you to any teams because they've been kicked out. But for Cote d'Ivoire, they are very humble, and they do recognize that it is because of Morocco that they've been one of the best losers.
I mean, Hala was absent from the competition. Obviously, we know the story of his, which this is why we like football, right? Because there are inspiring stories that come out of him. And then he scores, if not the most important goal of his career, a very important goal for Cote d'Ivoire to book them a spot into the final. Let's talk about the influence that he has within that team, but also just how that Cote d'Ivoire team has been assembled.
Well, we have to take it in two dimensions. I don't know if we will have time to do that because, like I said, the coach who was here, he had his own plan, philosophy, game strategy, which didn't work because he was benching Hala most of the time, and he was starting with Kessié. When a fight came on, actually, for the first game, he put Faye on the bench. He put Kessié on the bench and put him back in the second half as Pepe as well. And now he trusted Hala. But what Hala, with the trust given to him, putting him by the coach and delivering what he did last night, during the semi-final, that was marvelous. And for him, it will be one of the most, because it's not at the peak of his form.
Yeah. I mean, this is it was a brilliant birthday gift for the interim coach, right? But just before we go, Papa Jeff, just let me know. 2015, DRC and Cote d'Ivoire go head-to-head. Cote d'Ivoire then beats DRC and goes on to win the Africa Cup of Nations. This happened in the semi-final. The score was 3-1. Could we see a repetition of where? Do you get where I'm going with this?
I don't see it like that, because that was a different crop of players in 2015.
Alrighty, Papa Jeff says that this crop of players is not necessarily about who your name is, but it is what you bring to the field of play. Cote d'Ivoire, the Elephants of Ivory Coast, get to march on into the final, where they're set to meet with the Super Eagles, all the way from the west of Africa.